You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, we've got big news today as it appears that Donald Trump has offered Ghislaine Maxwell temporary immunity. So can you explain first and foremost what the implications are, what this means that she was offered immunity while she was speaking with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch?
Yeah, Brian, first and foremost, our viewers should know that when you offer somebody immunity, you're making it much, much harder for their testimony to ever be credited, to ever be believed, certainly by a jury. If Ghislaine Maxwell were ever put on the stand to testify, she would be destroyed. Her credibility would be lower than whale shit, and I don't believe any jury would convict based on her word. But more directly, what does immunity mean? Immunity is given, and immunity is not the friend of the prosecution. Why do I say that? Because we like to hold people accountable for their crimes. That is our goal. That is our mission. That is our purpose as prosecutors. When you give somebody immunity, you are saying, you can tell me about all the crimes you committed that you want, and you can't be prosecuted for them. Your statements to the prosecution, admitting to crimes, cannot be used against you. It is sometimes a last-ditch effort when prosecutors desperately want to extract evidence, information from a witness, but that witness has a privilege against self-incrimination, and the only way we can extract the information is if we promise not to use those statements against them to prosecute them. So I was a little surprised when I heard, I'm a lot surprised by everything that's going on here, including that Todd Blanch, Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney, who is still duty bound to keep Donald Trump's secrets. Because when you represent a defendant in a criminal case, you almost certainly come into information that could incriminate your client, because the client needs to tell the attorney everything they did. And of course, Donald Trump was convicted in the case that Todd Blanch represented him in, the New York prosecution. Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felony crimes. Todd Blanch, as we sit here today, is still ethically obligated to keep Donald Trump's secrets in confidence, because even when the attorney-client relationship is over, the attorney-client privilege lasts forever. So it's a special kind of insanity and unethical conduct and conflict of interest for somebody like Todd Blanch, who is still the keeper of Donald Trump's secrets, criminal secrets from when he represented him, to be sitting down with Ghislaine Maxwell, who potentially could incriminate Donald Trump. This is unethical behavior at its most pernicious. So I got sidetracked there, but Todd Blanch, this is a conflict jamboree, a conflict palooza. He has no business sitting down and talking with and evaluating the information from Ghislaine Maxwell. And then on top of it, they give her immunity. And basically they're saying, you can say anything you damn well please and it can't be used against you. So her credibility is about as low as it gets. But let's pile on top of that, Brian, the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was indicted for perjury previously in connection with allegations that she lied under oath in a 2016 deposition on questions as fundamental as, do you know anything about Jeffrey Epstein soliciting underage girls for sexual massages? Her answer under oath was, I have no idea what you're talking about. She was indicted for perjury. The only reason she wasn't tried for perjury is because the judge ordered that the perjury charge should be severed out, should be tried in a separate case from the sex trafficking and conspiracy case in which she was convicted in New York. But it's hard to envision somebody with less credibility than Ghislaine Maxwell. And of course, on top of all that, I have every reason to believe that Ghislaine Maxwell probably spent, 9 hours or more telling Todd Blanch, Donald Trump is as pure as the driven snow. I have no information about crimes he committed with Jeffrey Epstein or anybody else for that matter. And then, of course, the next question from Ghislaine Maxwell and her lawyers would very likely be, can I have my presidential pardon now?
Right, right. And that was kind of my next question here is we know that Ghislaine Maxwell is interested in a pardon. We know from the DOJ that they've given her this temporary immunity. Is there anything else that we can glean from this, or is that just the veneer of, okay, look, this is us being transparent and we're admitting that we're giving her temporary immunity so that we can kind of get you off our backs if you ask the real question, which is, did we offer her something else on top of that?
Yeah. So the immunity thing is tricky because when prosecutors grant a witness or a defendant or somebody who might aspire to be a cooperating witness, that is a defendant who typically pleads guilty to their crimes in exchange for a reduced sentence or a reduced plea or some kind of a benefit from the prosecutors. Because listen, if push comes to shove, we will give folks who committed crimes benefits, make them cooperating witnesses if they can bring to the table evidence that we can then use in future prosecutions against bigger criminal fish.
Right.
But what we don't do is give somebody immunity so they can falsely help somebody get away with crimes in the event that's what Ghislaine Maxwell is doing with respect to Donald Trump. This is the legal upside down in which we are living. So what the terms of the immunity typically are, and I've been involved in grants of immunity dozens and dozens of times in my 30 years as a federal prosecutor. Usually what we do is we sit down with somebody like Maxwell, somebody who we believe has information about the crimes of others. And before we ever give them immunity, we require them to go through what's called a proffer session. Now, stick with me here. What's a proffer session? A proffer session involves us giving them what's called Queen for a Day immunity. For that one session, we give them immunity and we say, listen, if you are 100% truthful with us, we will evaluate the information and evidence you're providing us under this 1-day immunity letter agreement. And we will see if we can corroborate it with independent evidence so we can assess the credibility of what you're telling us. And if it turns out to be true and accurate and corroborated and useful in us going after bigger criminal fish, then we will strike a more permanent deal with you. That permanent deal may be a cooperation agreement where we reduce charges or reduce a sentence you're serving, or it may be full-blown immunity. I have no confidence that they've gone through the regular law enforcement and prosecutorial procedures before they rushed to sit down with Ghislaine Maxwell before her scheduled August 11th congressional testimony appearance. But the other thing people should know is that when we grant somebody immunity, nothing they say about their own crimes can be used against them, but it doesn't protect them from perjury. What do I mean by that? It means that if somebody sits down with the prosecutors under a grant of immunity and provides a bunch of information, and then they testify in the future in a way that's inconsistent, it's a lie, inconsistent with the information they provided during the immunity debriefings or discussions, they can be prosecuted for that future perjury. So here's what I'm trying to get at, and I feel like I'm giving the most convoluted explanation, of all. But if they sat down with Ghislaine Maxwell and they gave her this grant of immunity, and she said, Donald Trump did nothing wrong with Jeffrey Epstein, committed no crimes. That's the story she's locked into. That's her immunized story. What does that mean? It means she has to stick with that script. In other words, if she were to testify before Congress on August 11th and said, all right, I got to be straight with y'all. I do have information about crimes committed by Donald Trump. What would that do? It would contradict what she told Todd Blanch in these immunity conversations, and then she could be prosecuted for perjury. So this could very effectively lock her in to the story that she told Todd Blanch. Again, I'm betting it's Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Let's not forget, Todd Blanch and Ghislaine Maxwell's defense attorneys are friends.
Right.
And we know that because Todd Blanch said so on the defense attorney's podcast previously. And the defense attorney, his name is David Oscar Marcus. Even before they sat down with Todd Blanch for this meeting, the defense attorney thanked Donald Trump for his transparency in trying to get to the bottom of all this. I mean, if that is not a signal that we're with you and we're ready to receive our pardon, I don't know what is.
Well, look, we're getting more and more information by the day in terms of what's going to unfold in this story. Sadly, to your exact point, the DOJ has already met with Maxwell, so they had the opportunity to get to her before Congress did with their August 11th deposition. So we'll see how that plays out. And of course, if there was anything said during this immunized session that she's going to negate when she finally has that discussion with members of Congress in the Oversight Committee. So we will, of course, stay on top of all of this. For everybody watching, if you'd like to follow along, please make sure to subscribe to both of our channels. The links are right here on the screen. It's the best way to support our work, the best way to support independent media, and it's completely free. Again, we'll put them right here on the screen and also in the post description. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.